I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, I'm talking to an amazing author. Her name is Gözde Yücel, and she is talking about her inspiring memoir. It is called Kismet, a Turkish-American woman's unlikely story of race, love, and personal transformation. This powerful story takes us on a journey of self-discovery, love, and resilience, exploring the challenges of immigration and divorce. Get ready for a tale of hope and triumph. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Great Writers Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Gözde, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
It's great to see you too. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Tell me a little bit about why you decided to share your story with the world in a book.
Yes, actually, there's a whole chapter about why I wrote the book. That's the last chapter. But essentially, in summary, I was going through a lot, and and I felt alone most of the time. And I was like, okay, I can't be the only one going through this. So I wanted to write my story, put it out there, hopefully touch someone, man or woman who are going through a really rough time with their divorce, separation, immigration, or whatever it is that they're going through. I was hoping that I could touch someone and make them feel like they're not alone. And I've done a lot of work about trauma, and I wanted to share that mental health. So I just thought, everyone tells me, oh, this is a crazy story you have. And I mean, this is one way to share it with the world.
Well, I think it's great that you did share the story. I think a lot of people do have a similar immigrants experience, believe it or not, from on one level or another. Tell us about that journey that took you from a Turkish suburb to the bustling streets of New York City.
Well, so I come from a scientific background family. My dad is a doctor and my mom is a dentist. So choosing science wasn't like very different for me because I come from that kind of background. But anyway, I went to this science high school, and I really loved being there, and I loved math, and I loved biology. But the way that it works in Turkey, you have to take this exam like SATs. But unlike America, the university entrance examination determines exactly where you're gonna go. So the point, whatever grade that you get, that's determines. It's not like all the hobbies you have here, all the other stuff it doesn't matter. So I wanted to be in the math department, but it happened that my point wasn't that high. So I went into biology department, which was the best thing happened to me because I didn't know how much I was going to like biology, especially genetics. Genes are, extraordinary. Why we have what we have right now, how I'm talking and stuff. So, and when I know now that even traumas are, passed through generations, that's amazing. So that's how I got into genetics and biology. And I wanted to do something with this. I wanted to like do research. I didn't want to just become a teacher and that's what my mom suggested. Believe it or not, she's a dentist and very modern woman, but she was like, "Oh, you should just become a teacher." Not that being a teacher is any bad.
Exactly, but it
It's
wasn't for
amazing.
you.
It's
Yeah, it
amazing.
just
Like
wasn't the path you
I'm
wanted.
very grateful for our teachers, but she was thinking in the sense that, hey, like if you get married and have children, at least you'll have your summers off, and like you'll have a better work-life balance. And she was right about that, but at the same time, I wanted to do something more. I wanted to be more like in research and really, find cure for cancer, for
Right.
instance, things like that. So, but the only way I thought I could do that was going out of Turkey. So that's how I decided to come to United States. And there were a lot of people coming. So I thought, why not? Let me apply. And then I got accepted to NYU. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, was it culture shock in a way, going from a suburb of Turkey to the busiest part of New York City there is, downtown Manhattan?
It was and it wasn't. I mean, it was in the sense that I do know big cities in Turkey, and Turkey is a very crowded country. So I'm kind of used to being in like a environment. There's so many people, right? So I'm kind of I know that feeling. Like you go to a bazaar to get your groceries for the week. It's like super crazy full. So I'm kind of used to that, but it's a
Right.
different culture, obviously. That in that way it was a culture shock, I'm sorry. But anyway, so what happened was though, I realized New York is one of the places that you could feel like you're home
Mm.
because you're just one of those people who come from anywhere else in the world. No one asks you where your accent is from, which I
Everybody's
get.
got an accent in New York City. Everybody's from somewhere else. And that makes it easy. I mean,
Right,
because you got people there from Greece, Italy, Ireland, Turkey, Africa, you name it,
right,
which is what
right.
the great part of New York City, and it truly is a melting pot. Now, were there any parts of your immigration experience that were difficult?
I mean, sure, of course. It's like coming to another country. It's always hard, right? It's a different culture. And also, yeah, there is this like understanding, not in New York, but everywhere else, I would say, oh, you have an accent. Oh, all of a sudden people think that you don't speak English or you don't speak English enough. And then I don't know, like also ideas about where you're from. Turkey, some people, Turkey, oh, where is that? Like, or oh, you guys, get on camels every day. Think questions like that.
Right,
You
right,
know
right.
what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, but it happens. It happens. I didn't
Right,
take it as badly. Yeah. I
right.
mean, but that when it comes to religion and all that, where you're from, some parts of the country, I have to say, there's, discrimination. So that happens. But
Right.
in science, it's very international. So,
Mhm.
like, there's no question the different gender race everybody comes from everywhere, and that's the kind of the bubble I'm used to, and that's what I found in New York as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. How long ago did you emigrate from the US, from Turkey?
22 years ago.
22 years ago. Okay.
Mhm.
And
Long time.
divorce is part of your story as well. So
Right.
obviously marriage is part of your story.
Right.
Was that difficult? Is it different here in the United States than it would be back in Turkey? I don't know if divorce is even allowed in Turkey. I don't know that. I know it's a pretty traditional culture. So tell us a little bit about that aspect of your story.
Yes, so yeah, it is allowed for sure. And actually, more and more people are getting divorced in
Mhm.
Turkey as well. It became part of the culture. It is a lot easier though, because when I was going through it and I was telling my parents the story, like, okay, this is what I have to do now, and this is what I have to do, they'd be like, you would have been done in 3 days here. Like, and it took me 3.5 years to finalize the divorce.
No, it's
And so they
crazy.
were very shocked, like how long it took, you know. So that's very different for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but I have to say, the laws here, especially in California, are on your side. Like, it's not like when you're getting out of a marriage, they say, okay, it's 50%, right? Like whatever you made in the marriage, that's 50-50. That doesn't happen in Turkey. And especially, it's a very male oriented,
Male-dominated culture, right?
so
Yeah.
culture where they think that like they can get away with stuff, they can hide the money or whatever, and generally women end up having the custody of their children even if they want to or not. That's like a given, like you're a mother, okay, then you get almost 100% custody, which I think is not the best case, because in the end these women end up taking care of their children, and it's a hard life. And that's why probably people don't choose to go that route, because they're like, okay, I'd rather be unhappy at home than being alone, a single mom with kids, that I have to take care of 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So in that way, for sure, I felt like it was a good situation.
Exactly. It's kind of the best of both worlds that your rights are protected. It's dragged out, no doubt, to enrich the lawyers. That's why it takes years and years in the United States to get divorced. But it's a challenging time for everybody, no matter what you do. Um, Tell us a little bit about the business that you started.
Yes. So I actually talk about this in the book as well. It's a career transition chapter. I wanted to do something about conflict at the workplace. So the business is called Kismet Consulting, like the name of the book, www.kismetconsulting.us. It started as like mediation and conflict resolution, but now we're adding more stuff to it as well. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it's conflict resolution for employers and employees. Is that what it is? Tell us a little bit more.
That's right. So I've been in science for 21 years, right? So I've been in academia, industry, and I've seen all types of flawed miscommunication, dysfunction. And this actually kind of gave me the idea. So when I went to industry after many, many years in academia, I thought everything was going to be perfect. Like nothing is perfect, but you know what I mean? Like there's an HR or people of operations. If you have a problem, then they will handle it. Or, it's like you have more rights because in academia, it's more like the professors running their labs. They're the king of the castles, and you have not much say in it. So I thought it would be a little bit different in industry. It is a little bit different. You have more rights for sure. But what ends up happening is like people bring in whatever baggage they have from their, background into the workplace, and they come from academia as well. So things don't change overnight.
Right.
What I realized is like we were losing talent and for like sometimes like really miscommunication. And I was like, this could be really helped. It's if people are more open and honest and communicating better, we wouldn't lose these many talents. And and it's hard to find talent. So especially in science, right? So anyway, I was talking to so we have a people of operations, Dee Dragon. She's been long time friend and a mentor. She said, why don't you do some certifications around mediation and conflict resolution? That's how it started. I was actually working at the biotech company where I worked almost 6 years. So in the second year, I took these classes. I was certified as a mediator and a conflict coach. And I started helping my colleagues on the side. I still was a scientist, but on the side, I was helping my colleagues, with their disputes and all. So it was actually very rewarding. I didn't do much mediation because it's hard for people to bring in the other person, say like, oh, I want to bring you to, because mediation works out when there are two people and then you are the neutral party.
Right.
But conflict coaching, on the other hand, is more like a soundboarding session, like
Right.
where they talk to you about their problems and stuff, and you help them have empathy for the other person and hopefully empower them to go and talk to them with better way of communication. Yeah.
Sounds great. It sounds like you fill a niche that isn't normally filled for businesses and employees because, like you said, getting well qualified, skilled, experienced talent, particularly in the science field and others, is important talent to retain. So if you can work out those issues, that's doing a great service to the company and to the individual as well. Now, what is Kismet Wellness? Is that also part of this? Is it? Tell me
Yes.
about that.
Actually, yes, it's actually on the same website and people want to check it out. But this is actually also, I have to say, like writing this book was the start of something that I want to really help people, right? This is my life's mission. especially coming from divorce, which I was blindsided. I was also talking to someone the other day. I was saying like divorce is like trauma that never goes away, right? So I had to, you know what I'm talking about.
Mine went on for 10
Especially if you're
years. So
sharing children with this person that you have to co-parent for I don't know how many years.
exactly. It's like a prison sentence that never goes away. Yeah. It's
Exactly.
finally away from me now, thank goodness. But it took like 20 years because the divorce took 10 years and then the children had to grow up. So,
Right.
it's tough.
It's
Tough. So
very
I
hard.
hear you. I feel your pain. Yeah.
Yes. So the traumas are very the distressing experiences that we have from childhood and adulthood. And so in the book, I talk about the trauma work that I've done. I have a close friend and a business partner, Sinan. He was trained with this technique, and it uses things like EFT, emotional freedom technique, or EMDR. So these are the trauma techniques that he uses along with everything else. And so what he was able to do helped me with my traumas, and then I was able to, feel better about them. So I really believe in this technique. So I was like, hey, I think it's important to help people with this. Like maybe we should, do something about this. And he's really into it as well. So we planned this retreats where we call it Finding Your Path, where it could be a day or two. We're still planning, but essentially it's uses the technique. Now we're going to call it neuro freedom technique, where we'll use other techniques as well, like EFT, the tapping. While you're talking about your trauma, you're tapping your head or your collarbones, and that's how you remove or release the tension. So we're hoping to help as many people as we can with this, because I feel like it helped me a lot, and I think it's important to share that wisdom with other people.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, is the retreat like a weekend, a week? Is it at a resort? Tell us a little bit about the actual retreat itself.
Yes. So first of all, we wanted to do the first couple of retreats with like a group of people, because we
Mhm.
believe that it's very important to be in a group. Like it helps to heal when you're in a group, like when you're in a gathering, actually. So there was a study done by Harvard University, and they looked at the woman because, women are more social and they live longer. They looked at the longevity of women. And when they looked at like how many social interaction they had and so on, what they realize that if the women are in more gatherings and more social interactions, they live longer. So we're hoping that if we gather people in a room, like probably will be in like more like a area that is like closed up, because we want everyone to feel safe.
Right.
And then if we're in a group like that, and we'll first start with like some type of meditation to relax with some breathing technique. And then we'll be looking into things like facing your parents, facing your relationships, about grief, or, feeling guilty, shame, blame, all these things that are part of our culture and life
Mhm.
that we're going to try to address in a group setting. But if people like it, we can also have one-on-one sessions as well. And I think that might be more helpful in the future. Once we figure out what the problem is,
Mhm.
then we can do something more later on. But first, we're trying to do one day, like 3-4 hours.
Right.
But if we're successful and everybody likes it, we could do it at a resort, maybe like in a couple of days. And, that's the plan.
Wonderful. Well, that sounds like a great business model. I think it's doing a great service to people out there who have been traumatized by divorce and other traumas in their lives, for sure. Is there a website or something where people can find out more about this?
So it's the same website, the www.kismetconsulting.us. There's a wellness tab there that they could check out our
Wonderful.
next retreat. Yes.
Wonderful. So you're a busy lady between the writing, the two businesses aligned with Kismet. And Kismet basically means good fortune, good luck, right?
Right, right. Fate or meant to be. So that's what I feel like. It's funny because when I was like looking for a name for my book, and I was talking to Dee, my longtime mentor and friend, and she's like, "You gotta find a word that's also in Turkish and English." So Kismet is, used in English as well, but it's from
Exactly.
Middle Eastern countries, and it's a very big word in Turkey. So it's yeah, I was like, okay, that's perfect actually, because the way that I wrote the book, and it's all meant to be. I feel like that's sums it up. So that's why, yeah, I went the name with it, Kismet.
Exactly. I think if you live long enough, you realize that life is like this. It's lots of ups and downs, no doubt. Everybody has the challenges, and it doesn't mean that's not exactly as life was meant to be. I mean, so Kismet does certainly fit for sure. Tell us a little bit about writing the book. Is it the first time you wrote a book?
It is. Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to show actually, like, yeah,
sure.
so this is the book.
Yep.
Yes.
It's a great
And
looking
this
book.
is I want to talk about the little bit of the picture. This is from like one of my happy places is in Turkey, Kuşadası Güzelçamlı, where I spend my summers growing up.
Wonderful.
So I was there last summer. So I took this picture last summer, not thinking that it will be the cover of my book, but I was like, it's perfect because this is where I feel the happiest.
That's great.
Yeah, so I started journaling. So this was a suggestion from my therapist, and a friend said, like, you're going through a lot. Why don't you start journaling? Like, I never wrote before. Like, I didn't journal before. And I was like, okay, maybe that might be a good idea. So, and also my sister was saying, hey, you're gonna forget about all this. Like, you're already forgetting, because what brain does is like it does this thing of like try to block things, right? Not
Sure.
that you don't want to block things, but still, like, some things you want to remember, especially
Right.
going through it, right? So I started writing. First, things would happen, like I would write a paragraph here and a page here and there. And then I realized, wow, this is a lot of stuff. Like, why don't I make this a book?
Mhm.
But Logan, believe me or not, everybody wants to write a book, but it's actually, and everybody has stuff on their hands that they've written. But the part that is really hard is like getting that into a publication.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, well, I'm a scientist, so I come from a culture that I don't give up. So I'm like, I'm gonna get this done. So, so what happened was I found a book coach, and he
Mhm.
became my editor as well, David O'Neill. He's been amazing. So first I start working with him, and we would have sessions every 2 weeks. So I sent him my stuff, and like, I'm not an author. I mean, I read, I love audiobooks, I love memoirs, but I never thought that I could be an author myself, right? So I'm like, I sent him the stuff, and he gave me such a good feedback. He was like, there's a lot to work on here, Gözde. I don't think you have a lot more to write on.
Great.
So it was already like we had like 3 or 4 chapters ready. He just helped me, add a paragraph here. Why don't you extend here? Why don't you talk about your feelings here? And things like that. So he actually helped me shape it, so it became the book now. And then afterwards, the chapter 6 is the conclusion book. That was my idea. I was like, I mean, I mention it along the book, but it's always like, as a scientist, you start with a summary, but you finish with like what you've written, right? So I just wanted to like say, okay, this is why I've written the book. And hopefully I managed to do that. So yeah, it took about starting to work with, I mean, it's a 4-year project, but
Hmm.
like starting to work with the book coach, David, and like finishing it, it was like maybe 8 months, you
Right.
know,
Right.
and then we would meet every 2 weeks, and he would give me this like homework, and he would be like, Gözde, you're not like a regular authors that I would work, like they would have blocks and stuff, like, because I was working in a mentality of a scientist. I'm like, you give me an assignment, I'll get it done. So,
That's funny. That's funny. Well, journaling certainly was a big advantage
right.
because you had a lot of the notes written already. And certainly working with another professional, whether it's an editor or a book coach, is super helpful because after a while, you're too close to the material that you can't judge. Should this stay in? Should that stay out? Should I elaborate more here? So it's great to have another person there as a sounding board. What do you hope people take away from your book?
Well, like I mentioned, that one of the things that I felt like that they shouldn't feel alone. The being alone in this kind of situation, or you feel like you're the only one going through this, it makes it worse almost, right? So I wanted them to feel like they're not alone. Also, this is a big journey for me, and I'm still going through this, a work in progress. It never ends, right? Self-love. Like, it's so important that we don't realize, like, I had to figure out the hard way that I have to put myself first, and self-love, self-respect, understanding yourself is the most important that you can do for your mental health and for yourself and your children, right? Because you know how they say, you go into you're in a plane, and then there's the turbulence, the things on, you have to put the mask on yourself first, right? So that's so important, because if you're not well, then your kids are not going to be well. And that was the decision point for me, where I had to say, okay, I've got to save myself to save my kids. So, and yeah, so that's the big takeaway of the book. But there's also like how I got there, like the traumas and all that. But the self-love, I would say, the biggest takeaway.
Absolutely. I think that is definitely a great takeaway from your book for sure. And the analogy of the face mask on an airplane is perfect because you do have to take care of yourself if you're going to take care of others. Now, I know why you went from Turkey to New York. Tell us why you left New York and went to California. Because you got sick of those horrible winters, probably, right?
No, no, actually, I love New York. So it's still like my, my city that I want to live one day. It's
Mhm.
definitely, and I never forget. I think people say that, like, as an immigrant, the first place that you come to, you never forget. So I feel like that. But that's when I met my ex-husband. So he was coming to California, so I followed him to come to California. So that's where we ended up having children here. So that's why we've been here for this long. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Before we leave it today, anything else you'd like the folks at home to know about your work or your book? Do you have more books coming out? You working on anything new?
Well, the thing is, though, I've got so many good feedbacks. So I thought the book was going to be more like towards a woman, but even I had male friends and people who read the book and really thought great things about it. And they said that, this is a great book, and it touched them somehow. So now I'm inclined to feel like I need to write another book.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we're
Yes.
looking forward to it. And you're writing new chapters every day because you are a very, very busy woman, no doubt, with your business. Gözde Yücel has written a terrific and inspiring memoir. It is called Kismet, a Turkish-American woman's unlikely story of race, love, and personal transformation. It is a powerful story that takes us on a journey of self-discovery, love, and resilience, exploring the challenges of immigration and divorce along the way. It is also a tale of hope and triumph, and it will connect with you whether you're a man, woman, immigrant, or whatever your immigration status is. Gözde, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation.
I enjoyed talking with you as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.